Hello, I'm Dilek Tuna and you're watching A News. Now let's take a look at today's top stories. Ukraine suffers from another large-scale overnight attack. Germany moves closer to bringing back mandatory military service. And the US and South Korea agree on a major trade and security cooperation deal. There have been major overnight attacks on both Ukraine and southern Russia. Hundreds of Russian drones and missiles struck nationwide, including hits on energy facilities and in residential areas, according to Kiev officials, while the Ukrainian drone strike triggered a fire at a Russian oil terminal.
Ukrainian officials say Russia launched one of the largest overnight attacks on Kyiv since the start of the war, firing 430 drones and 18 missiles at energy facilities, residential areas and key infrastructure. At least 6 people were killed in the capital and more than 35 injured, including children and a pregnant woman, according to Kyiv's military administration. 11 apartment buildings were hit and fires broke out across multiple districts. Damage was also reported at a hospital, a school and sports facilities. Power outages were recorded in central, southern and eastern regions as air defences attempted to intercept the barrage. In Kyiv Oblast, additional injuries were reported and widespread damage hit homes and industrial zones. President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned what he called a deliberately calculated attack aimed at causing the maximum possible harm to people and civilian infrastructure. He said the Azerbaijani embassy in Kyiv was damaged by fragments of an Iskander missile. Azerbaijan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs later issued more detailed statement, clarifying that one of the Iskander-type missiles actually fell onto the territory of the embassy, destroying part of the perimeter wall, damaging the consular section, service vehicles and several buildings across the compound. The ministry underscored that no casualties were reported, but described the scale of destruction as serious and unacceptable. Following the incident, Azerbaijan summoned Russia's ambassador, delivering a formal protest and handing over a note verbale. Hours later, Ukraine carried out long-range strikes. President Zelensky confirmed that Ukraine used long Neptune missiles against Russian targets, saying Kyiv would continue responding to Russia's attacks and urging allies to tighten sanctions. Ukrainian drones struck the Russian port of Novorossiysk, hitting a docked vessel and an oil depot and injuring 4 people, according to officials. Another strike targeted the Saratov oil refinery, with damage reported to civilian infrastructure. Russia, meanwhile, claims its air defences destroyed more than 200 Ukrainian drones, including 66 over Krasnodar, 45 over Saratov and several more over Belgorod and Rostov.
Germany's government has agreed on a new compromise to revamp its military service. The package includes incentives such as monthly pay and a subsidy for obtaining a driver's license. It's the country's second attempt to settle its contentious defence reforms.
Germany's coalition partners have agreed on a draft bill on Thursday to introduce a voluntary military service as the country seeks to strengthen national defences amid concerns over Russia. The EU's largest nation will initially rely on volunteers for the new scheme. If enough soldiers do not sign up, Parliament may consider other measures, including a lottery system to select people at random for compulsory service. The government is offering incentives to boost participation. The Defence Ministry hopes the 6-month voluntary programme will double the number of trained reservists, with some volunteers expected to pursue careers in active service.
I would like to emphasise once again that the voluntary military service personnel who come to us will have a gross income of around €2,600. Depending on the length of service, some will receive a subsidy for a driving licence, either for a car or a truck. This will also benefit the armed forces when they enter the reserve, so all in all, a well-rounded, attractive package.
Dann, wenn es in die Reserve geht. Also
Defence Minister Boris Pistorius aims to raise the number of active soldiers from 180,000 to 260,000 by the early 2030s to meet NATO targets and strengthen Germany's defences as part of a planned increase in military spending. NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte welcomed Germany's initiative, stating that more personnel are needed in its armed forces.
Well, you know, each country decides for themselves how to deal with the question of getting enough men and women into the military. But I'm very happy to hear that the coalition here in Germany has now agreed, as I understand it, on a way forward. And that is very important, that there is a political agreement, political Einigung, and I think you have achieved it now in the Berlin coalition. So it's up to each nation how to deal with this, but obviously as NATO Secretary General I'm always happy when decisions are taken to get more people involved in our military.
From next year, all 18-year-olds will receive a questionnaire asking about their health, education and willingness to perform military service. Men will be required to respond. Around 700,000 young people born in 2008 or later will be contacted to complete registrations and medical screenings.
Across Europe took part in NATO exercises called Dacian Fall 2025 in Romania on Thursday. The drills tested their ability to defend countries along the alliance's eastern flank. The exercises have been ongoing since mid-October and aim to practice rapidly moving troops to Romania and Bulgaria in the event of an attack. Some 2,400 French troops took part alongside contingents from allied nations, including Poland, Spain, Portugal and North Macedonia. NATO says the exercises are defensive in nature. The United States has labelled 4 groups in Europe, in Germany, Italy and Greece as global terrorists on Thursday, accusing them of being violent Antifa groups. Washington says this is in an effort to build on Trump's commitment to confront Antifa's campaign of political violence. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said in a statement he intends to also designate the groups as foreign terrorist organisations from the 20th of November and warned that Washington would target other groups around the world.
It's a fake story. And what's happening now is people with a business card that has a government.
The United States and South Korea have unveiled a new trade deal worth $350 billion, together with wide-ranging defence and technology commitments. The package includes support for US shipbuilding, plans for nuclear-powered submarines and lower American import tariffs on key South Korean goods.
Details of a trade deal between the US and South Korea have been released, including $350 billion in Korean investment across American industries. The package includes $150 billion for US shipbuilding and $200 billion for industrial projects. The agreement formalizes commitments made during a meeting between President Lee Jae-myung and President Donald Trump at the end of last month, where they agreed to deepen defense and technological ties. President Lee said South Korea will push ahead with nuclear-powered submarines and launch new joint ventures with America.
Through this negotiation, the Republic of Korea and the United States reached a shared understanding pursuing the construction of nuclear-powered submarines, which is an objective sought for decades by the Republic of Korea and a strategic asset essential to peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula. We also succeeded in securing the US government's support for expanding authorities related to uranium enrichment and the reprocessing of spent nuclear fuel.
Beyond the defense and technology commitments, both sides settled on a plan to cut US import tariffs on South Korean goods from 25% to 15%. The reduced duties will apply to sectors such as cars, semiconductors, and steel, and, crucially, will take effect retroactively from the 1st of November. Officials say the two governments have now finalised a joint fact sheet covering both commercial and security arrangements, which analysts say marks the most significant upgrade in US-South Korea economic cooperation in years.
All this week we've been covering what's been happening at COP30 in Belém, Brazil. And among the main discussions, there have been meetings on the sidelines of the event, one being the Global South NGOs and the challenges it faces. Our Orkan Amashov reports from Brazil.
Global South NGO platform was established in Baku in April of this year. Back then, during the inaugural session, the focus was on the necessity of meeting the challenge facing Global South countries, South-to-South cooperation and climatic matters. And today's side event being held here in Belém, Brazil, entitled Global South Bridge, Connecting Climate Action with Justice, is of course part of the self-same trajectory. How would you evaluate the importance of Global South platform in terms of actually addressing challenges facing the countries within that geographical scope?
Well, thank you. I think the Global South NGO platform is really crucial in the sense of bringing together the Global South countries, because there's a lot of the overarching problems that all countries face, but until now the policy has always been detached. Countries have tried to overcome them on their own, but like our President, His Excellency President Ilham Aliyev said, they can count on us, they can count on Azerbaijan, especially the NGO platform, to bring together all of these countries and form a platform to overcome these issues, find funding and bring everyone together.
What is your evaluation of this particular side event? And do you think that NGOs, non-governmental organizations, have this particular propensity for producing tangible outcomes in a way that state actors are not able?
Well, I think first and foremost, this is the outcome of a very good creation out of the Azerbaijan COP29. The Global South NGO network itself presents a wonderful opportunity for civil societies, some private sectors as well, and communities to really come in and do their part, where sometimes at the highest level or the legislative levels are unable to end up creating something because of the bureaucracy. But I think what is also more important is that the amount of knowledge that exists sometimes at the NGO level allows some of these things to be transformed and shared.
Earlier this year in April, we have founded Global South NGO platform, as you and me were also moderators there. And it was a legacy when we have the question, what's the legacy of Azerbaijan from COP29? Of course, in different directions, Azerbaijan really has a profound legacy. But when we speak about the civil society, legacy for civil society, we can mention this Global South NGO platform, because Global South NGO platform was, it was an initiative of Azerbaijan National NGO Forum, but it was this call to action to create such a platform was signed by more than 100 countries representatives, represented from Global South and Global South countries.
COP30 is well and truly underway, and on day 4, one of the major topics taking centre stage is climate literacy. Speaking at the summit, Elnur Aliyev, advisor to Azerbaijan's Minister of Science and Education and acting director of the Institute of Education, highlighted Baku's experience and efforts in this area.
Today we have witnessed one of the inspiring and exciting events here in COP30. Why it's exciting and inspiring? Because in COP29, the initiative that is presented at COP29 by Azerbaijan to globally evaluate, assess environmental literacy of students. And this initiative today has been presented at COP30 as already developed and accepted by PISA Directorate.
Iran has strongly rejected as unfounded and irresponsible a statement released by the foreign ministers of the Group of Seven on Tehran's nuclear program and its alleged support of Russia in the war with Ukraine.
Iran categorically refuted a joint statement issued on Wednesday by the foreign ministers of Group of Seven in Canada regarding Tehran's ties with the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, as well as its alleged role in the Russia-Ukraine war. Iran's foreign ministry spokesman Esmail Baghai said on Thursday that G7's accusations are unfounded, irresponsible, and totally unacceptable. At the end of their meeting, the G7 foreign ministers leveled accusation against Tehran for providing support to Moscow in the Ukraine war, urging it to resume full cooperation with the UN nuclear watchdog. In reaction, the spokesman rejected any allegations suggesting involvement in the transfer of arms to Russia. Baghai also criticized G7's demand for Tehran's wider cooperation with the IAEA, terming it deceitful and interventionist, citing the group's deliberate disregard for the US-Israeli military attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities under UN verification. Iran said on Thursday it has filed a complaint at the United Nations against the United States seeking compensation for the 12-day airstrikes in June, urging the UN to bring Washington and Tel Aviv to justice. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov held a telephone talk on Wednesday discussing the forthcoming IAEA Board Governors session next week in Vienna, Austria, with Iran's nuclear program reportedly on its agenda. Turaj Shiralilu, Tehran, A News.
Now we'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll discuss Germany's plan to transform the German armed forces into the strongest conventional army in Europe and the European reactions to that plan. Stay with us.
On World Business, we meet the boardroom leaders making market-moving decisions. And find out how leaders are dealing with continuous technological disruption.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond.
Welcome back to A News. Germany's rapid rearmament plans are stirring mixed reactions across Europe. Chancellor Friedrich Merz has pledged to transform the German armed forces into the strongest conventional army in Europe, a promise that has raised eyebrows in Paris, even as Poland calls the move natural, given the continent's shifting security landscape. Now we look at what this military build-up means for Europe's balance of power and for the continent's long-term security. Joining me to discuss is Michael Hack, political analyst from Berlin, Germany. Well, Michael, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Chancellor Merz says Germany will build Europe's strongest conventional army. How realistic is that ambition in terms of capability and funding?
It is. I mean, Germany is clearly in a position to deliver on that promise. The thing is only how to implement that. And we see a lot of emphasis right now that Germany wants to strengthen, in general, the European capabilities in defense, which were, since World War II and with the horror which happened there, neglected and was not a real part of the German system. We contributed to the basics. Germany was always happy to pay for NATO spendings and for other missions which globally occurred, but we were never really in the position here to build up a strong self-army. This will be a change, and you see already the tensions you mentioned already at the beginning here. You see France who is very much in favor to have a common European vision of a common approach to it.
Okay,
whereas
sorry
Poland
to cut you off,
is
Michael.
more.
Should we come back to the
Yes, please.
responses a little bit later on? I was going to ask you about
Please.
those.
Sure.
Okay. Are you happy with the answer to the first question? I can move on if
I
you're
am
ready.
very happy with that.
All right.
Yes, thank
Now,
you very
why is Germany pushing, Michael, so aggressively on rearmament now? What strategic pressures are driving this shift?
There are several ones. I mean, first of all, we have in Germany a large defense sector. We have large defense companies. We are capable of steering that up. It's also a kind of an economic program, which is where this larger GDP spend has to go. We committed now, and in the budget talks now, which just concluded yesterday, there was a kind of a 2.4% of the GDP spending now foreseen, which sums up to $100 billion or 86 billion euros in a total spend for the defense sector. So it's also kind of an economic program behind that. On the other hand, it should serve as a kind of a contribution of a European defense sector, because the world became more unreliable. And I think it's carried by a majority of the population here that Germany has to do more to get armed and to be ready to defend the country.
Okay, all right. So let's hone in on the reactions now. Poland calls this rearmament natural. So what's driving Warsaw's supportive stance?
The lack of partners. I think historically, Poland is not very interested to have a strong German army next to them. But given the fact of the threat from the east and from Russia, what they perceive, they want to have strong partners around them. And they see that their partners south of Poland are not very much aligned with their policy. So they are looking for partners. So it's very natural for them that their closest ally, Germany, is supporting them.
Okay, and so France, on the other hand, has expressed concern. What exactly is Paris uneasy about? I mean, leadership rivalry or historical sensitivities come to mind. What's your analysis?
I would say France is there systematic for the Western world. What you also see in the UK. These were world powers before, economically in a large decline, and where they still strong are their defense sectors. So they still have their atomic nuclear submarines, they still have nuclear weapons, they are still a power in that. And of course now, if Germany, which has a way larger population and a larger economic power, now takes over such a leading role in military, that shows even more the kind of a decline of power from France. So it's kind of natural. If you look at it from that perspective, more positively formulated, you can also say, yeah, France is just looking more for a common approach, for a European approach, for a common European policy, where everything is aligned and where you have more equal partners. Because like I described before, from the whole economic power, Germany is simply superior there to France. But and there I see that France is fearing a little bit to lose here a leading role in the defense sector.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Michael, how do smaller EU and NATO states view a heavily armed Germany? More reassurance, or would you say more discomfort?
More reassurance. I mean, if you look at the Baltic states or anyone which are there under threat, I think they have a clear vision that the NATO, that the European countries should be there to support them, and stronger German military supports them in their view. So I think from the smaller states, there is, particularly in the east here and the Baltic states, I think there's a clear support for this policy as well.
Okay, and could Germany's build-up redefine the leadership structure within European defence?
I think so. I mean, it's a clear shift. We have also here internally in Germany the whole discussion about Wehrpflicht, so mandatory military service again, which has fallen a little bit out of time because how do you structure that? Do you only want to have young men, women included in that? So it leads to a lot of questions how to do that. For Europe, it also it's a game changer, but like it works in the European Union as well, but Germany is by far the largest economy and has by far the largest population. You find a kind of a way to manage this organization, this NATO, in a way where these effects are limited, like in the EU, where you have then a kind of a cap on voting rights, where the smallest states have more voting power compared to their actual size. So there will be something. Going on, but yeah, of course, it will be a shift in power, and with Germany stronger, there's more to be expected from Germany, and of course, a stronger decision power here from Germany. Yeah.
Okay, and how might this affect NATO cohesion, Michael? Does a more militarily dominant Germany strengthen the alliance, or does it complicate it?
I think it's strengthened it. I mean, if you look at the US, recent statements from the White House, from the US government, they are overly positive about all of that. So that's what they ask for since years. So not only the Trump administration, also before the Biden administration, of course with Trump even stronger. So they are just welcoming this. I think the less they see the need to spend in Europe, the better for them. And they very much welcome this initiative there. So overall, if you want to, I see it as a positive step to protect this whole NATO idea, because if there's not more funding coming out of the European country, I think the US would go even more out of this concept. But now Germany stepping up, taking their more kind of a leading role, the better it is for the NATO.
And so is there a risk of competition between Berlin and Paris for strategic influence?
Yes and no. I mean, these are two major European powers. You see it with all these cooperation projects between Germany and France, and how they are dealt with. If it's in the military sector with the fusion of these large defense companies under a kind of common management. If you see it with Airbus, which is another example how this cooperation works. So there's something coming up, how you split this power and how you contribute to that. So I'm positive that in the last 60, 70 years there are a lot of concepts like the Airbus model, and this will just be rolled out in a similar way.
Okay, and how much of this shift is driven by Russia's aggression and Europe's recognition that the US can't always be relied upon?
It's a catalyst, let's say it like that. Possibly it would have broken sooner or later, but maybe never, who knows. But this Russian aggression forced the Europeans to rethink their own policies, to rethink their own defense policy. So, of course, it was it's the ignition of all of that. And if that wouldn't have happened, we possibly would have this discussion in 10, 20 years.
Mm-hmm. And could this rearmament trigger a new intra-European arms race or simply fill capability gaps that already exist?
In the current political landscape, I would say it's still a common approach. That's why you have this whole Rearm Europe program, which is in place. Also, this Readiness 2030 program. So, the European nations there and the European Union, they are renaming and putting a lot of programs here in place to rearm Europe. So this is a common approach, but the more nationalistic governments you see in Europe, the more I personally fear that this could backfire. But I think this would be the worst case scenario. I don't see it right now, and I see more this European approach where Germany is always asked to do more, like funding the EU, the major funds are coming from Germany. It will be simply the same for the defense sector, where now with this, who's paying for this Readiness 2030 program at the end of the day? So there's a majority coming out of German funds. The same is true for the Rearm Europe program. That's how it will go. So it's all, I think, pretty much a balance there.
Okay, and how does Germany's defence industry factor into this? Is it prepared for an expansion on this scale?
Exactly. I mean, I think if you look at the stock market and how these German defense companies like Rheinmetall perform, this is exceptional. They are at their limit of production and over, which also raises concern with the German government, because I think they are not willing to fund overly huge margins on these products anymore, because they are clearly in demand, and clearly the German defense companies are making a margin there. Mm-hmm. So I think the capabilities, they will be built up. Germany is going through a phase of economic restructuring. There are a lot of qualified workforce here in Germany when it comes to machinery and to in similar industrial fields. So I think there's definitely the capability there to build up and to foster here the defense sector. So I think they will be in the position to deliver more to Germany and to the NATO and to the world, but it takes a little bit time. And right now it was a very sudden change from in the defense sector, from being the underdogs and having no funding, to now nations from all over the world throwing money at them and asking for their products.
Okay, Michael, one final question. I know you said that the German public was very much in favour of this new plan and strengthening the military capability of the country, but are there domestic political risks for Merz in pushing such an ambitious military agenda?
I say that it's an observation. I think it's from the population of general fear. There was never something like war coming close to Germany in the last more than 70 years. So they see the problem now, and they want to have security. That's why you have this broad support of this war, Ukraine-Russia war, which is hard to understand, because you have here a large support from the Green Party, from center-left parties, from the Conservatives. So you have a very broad coalition here of supporters. That's why I said, in general, the majority of Germans appear to be very supportive of this rearm. If, like with every policy, if the man on the street isn't really affected by it, and if their sons are asked to do military service, let's see how much this sentiment will change again. Mm-hmm. But for the time being, I see that there was a certain change, which we called Zeitenwende, where there's more, they are more conscious that there are real fears out there, that there could be, again, a kind of a warlike conflict within Europe.
Okay. Michael, thank you so much for joining us on the program. It's been most insightful.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's go on a break now, and when we return, we'll take a look at the key stories shaping the region. Stay with us.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond.
Welcome back to A News. Now we'll continue with key stories shaping the region. A fragile ceasefire between Afghanistan and Pakistan is holding tonight, but tensions remain dangerously high. Pakistan is now accusing Afghan nationals of carrying out 2 deadly suicide attacks on its soil this week. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
Pakistan's Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi told Parliament on Thursday that Afghan nationals were behind both attacks, one targeting a courthouse in Islamabad on Tuesday and another hitting a military school near the Afghan border a day earlier. He called the alleged involvement of Afghans a major serious concern and repeated accusations that Kabul is supporting Islamist groups operating inside Pakistan. But Kabul has rejected those claims. Spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid told Reuters that Kabul does not harbor Pakistani militants and insisted Afghan forces have themselves detained or killed Pakistani nationals during operations against Islamic State militants. He added that individual suspects do not represent the entire Pakistani nation nor its government. Tuesday's bombing in Islamabad killed at least 12 people and wounded 27 when a suicide attacker detonated explosives close to a police patrol outside a lower court. On Monday, another bomber rammed a vehicle packed with explosives into the main gate of a military school in South Waziristan, killing 3. Relations between the neighbors have deteriorated sharply in recent years. Just last month, dozens of soldiers and civilians were killed in border clashes, underscoring how volatile the situation remains. For now, the ceasefire continues, but both sides trading accusations. The path to lasting stability appears uncertain. Tamim Bahis in Kabul, A News.
President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, received a delegation led by Asian Development Bank President Masato Kanda on Friday. The meeting highlighted strong cooperation between Azerbaijan and ADB, which has provided $5.5 billion in support since 1999 through 145 projects in transport, energy, water, finance, education and healthcare. Both sides praised joint initiatives in public and private sectors. During the meeting, connectivity along the Central Asia-Azerbaijan-Europe corridor was emphasised as a key priority. Future projects were discussed, focusing on expanding railway and metro networks and improving water supply infrastructure. Azerbaijan's non-oil and gas exports grew by 6.6% in January to October, reaching $3 billion. The Centre for Analysis of Economic Reforms reports. Food exports increased by almost 20%, while fruit and vegetable exports rose 30%. Sugar exports jumped nearly 50%, chemical products 23%, and cotton yarn around 9%. Overall, agricultural and agro-industrial exports grew by 19%, totalling $1.03 billion. Leaders of Central Asia and South Caucasus are gathering in Tashkent for the 7th advisory meeting of heads of state of Central Asia that could define the region's future.
The 7th advisory meeting of heads of state of Central Asia will be held in Tashkent, chaired by President Shavkat Mirziyoyev of the Republic of Uzbekistan. Participants will include presidents of Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Kakhim-Nadze, head of the UN Regional Center for Preventative Diplomacy for Central Asia. The agenda focuses on strengthening regional cooperation, implementing shared projects and addressing current global and regional challenges. In his policy statement ahead of the summit, President Mirziyoyev outlined 5 priority areas: enhancing regional institutions, building a common security space, expanding trade, industrial cooperations and transport corridors, developing humanitarian ties such as education, culture and news exchange, and coordinating foreign policy positions through Central Asia Plus formats. In a related development, the President addressed the International Congress Central Asia Shared Spiritual Educational Heritage Shared Future, emphasizing the region's deep cultural foundations and proposing a UN resolution to recognize Central Asian scientific and civilizational contributions. He also describes the upcoming summit as a milestone in what he called a new era of regional unity, highlighting the joint work on industry, resource management and free movement of people across borders. Iris Sevirova reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan are stepping up efforts to deepen their economic partnership, outlining new projects and long-term goals during high-level talks in Astana. The two governments say the momentum in bilateral trade is stronger than ever, and they're now moving to expand cooperation across key sectors. Our correspondent Fariza Kalimurzina has the details.
Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan are aiming to significantly strengthen their economic cooperation, setting a joint goal to boost bilateral trade to $3 billion by 2030. The two countries held the 13th meeting of the Intergovernmental Council in Astana, where Kazakhstan's Prime Minister Olzhas Bektenov and Kyrgyzstan's Chairman of the Cabinet of Ministers Adulbek Kasmaliyev discussed the next stages of their partnership. The talks covered a wide range of areas: trade, energy, water management, agriculture, transport, logistics and tourism. And the momentum is already visible. In the first 8 months of this year, trade turnover grew by 21%, reaching $1.4 billion. Kasmaliyev emphasized that both countries have strong potential to deepen cooperation. He pointed to proposals from the Kyrgyz side, including the creation of an industrial trade and logistics hub in the border region, as well as a major wholesale distribution center for agricultural products in the Almaty region. According to him, these projects would help stabilize supply chains and strengthen collaboration in the agri-food sector. He also noted that the modernization of border infrastructure, including the reopening of previously inactive checkpoints, is already improving conditions for faster goods movement and more efficient logistics between the two countries. Tourism was another important topic on the agenda. The two prime ministers agreed to revive mountain routes leading to Khan Tengri Peak, located on the shared territory of Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. The meeting concluded with both sides signing a protocol that formalizes the new agreements and outlines the next steps in expanding economic cooperation. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
A ceremony was held on Friday for 20 Turkish soldiers killed in a military plane crash near the Georgia-Azerbaijan border. Officials, including Parliament Speaker and Defence Minister, attended the ceremony. Later, a funeral for 3 of the victims was held in Ankara. The C-130 cargo plane had left Azerbaijan on Tuesday, carrying maintenance personnel, crew and equipment for Turkish F-16s. The crash caused Turkey's highest military death toll since 2020. The bodies were repatriated on Thursday and a farewell ceremony took place the next morning before they were flown to their hometowns. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll turn to the 7th consultative meeting of heads of state in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, as leaders from Central Asia and Azerbaijan gather with plans to adopt a package of multilateral agreements to deepen regional cooperation. Stay with us.
And welcome to Primetime. What a show we've got lined up for you. In a complex world, clarity is power. Two hours live, diplomacy dissected in a spin-free environment. That's Prime Time with me, Guy Schoen, weekdays on A News.
Welcome back. You're watching A News. Leaders from Central Asia and Azerbaijan have gathered in Uzbekistan for a high-level summit focused on strengthening regional cooperation. The meeting brings together heads of state from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan, with discussions expected to centre on connectivity, trade, security and energy partnerships. As these countries look to deepen ties across the heart of Eurasia, today's summit could shape the region's economic and geopolitical trajectory. Joining me now to unpack is Zanat Mominkulov. He's a senior lecturer at the Eurasian National University from Astana, Kazakhstan. Welcome to the program, Zanat.
Thank you.
Now, how significant is it to see all Central Asian leaders alongside Azerbaijan at one table in Uzbekistan?
It's a significant signal of mature diplomacy. So adding Azerbaijan to Central Asia shows that the region is now thinking beyond its borders towards Europe, Caspian Sea, and the Caucasus. So it also shows that the meeting is becoming a practical mechanism, a very important coordination platform. So key 5 points. The hosting side, Tashkent, calls for joint steps in institutionalization, security, foreign policy, culture, and economics.
Okay. Now, I like what you said was mature diplomacy. And I want to add to that, what does this summit tell us about the region's growing appetite for closer political and economic coordination?
So I think it shows the countries are moving from ceremonial rhetoric cooperation to real, pragmatic, structured dialogue. So the willingness of pragmatic integration, or at least solutions, is growing, especially on transport, energy, and food security, agriculture. So the leaders want concrete projects, not just declarations.
Sure. And what are the key agenda items driving this gathering? Connectivity, transport corridors, energy, and wider security cooperation. Perhaps we could hone in on these factors.
I think the countries might discuss agriculture, digitalization, transport corridors, and regional security. International events and force this Central Asian plus Azerbaijan to coordinate more closely, including border stability and Afghanistan-related issues, economic feasibility, and connectivity.
And how important is Azerbaijan's participation in terms of linking Central Asia to the South Caucasus and Europe?
I think it's huge, it's very important, because Baku is a bridge and gateway for Central Asia. So without Azerbaijan, the Middle Corridor simply doesn't work. It connects Central Asia to the world markets, so it's crucial. Azerbaijan is a key hub for the Middle Corridor. It provides transit, ports, links to Georgia and Europe.
Mm-hmm. And Uzbekistan has been hosting more high-level events recently. How does this fit into Tashkent's broader regional ambitions?
So now Tashkent is positioning itself as a diplomatic architect and main integrator of the region.
Mm-hmm.
According to Uzbek foreign policy, Central Asia is a key priority. So Uzbekistan wants to be the engine of the regional cooperation using this chairmanship. So this diplomacy might convert regional goodwill into projects where Uzbekistan takes the lead.
And Zanat, what opportunities are emerging for new energy routes and transit corridors through the Caspian region?
I think it's huge and expanding. So Europe wants non-Russian energy resources. China wants alternative trade paths. Central Asia wants more diversification of routes. The Caspian oil, gas, the resources, fiber optics are becoming strategic connectors in this case. So the sites need more investments and financing and coordination.
And could we see tangible agreements that strengthen the middle corridor linking China, Central Asia and the Caspian and Europe?
Quite possible. Even one or two concrete agreements on these matters, customs, rail, tariffs or logistics would be a major step forward. Recent steps of Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan can be an example of that, to show the political will. So we expect further progress in that direction.
And Zanat, how do regional leaders balance cooperation with global giants like China, Russia, Turkey and the EU?
Of course, carefully. The pragmatic strategy of Central Asia plus Azerbaijan is multi-vector plus regional solidarity. So we were working with China, European Union, US and their partners, maintain ties with Russia, but reduce our overdependence on single side. So the summit is a part of this balancing act by building regional leverage.
Okay, Zanat, it's an absolute pleasure talking to you. I appreciate your insight and your time.
Thank you.
You're up to date with world news for this hour. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.